Western Jamaica's economic future. Before I proceed, allow me to define the motion. By increased investment, we refer to greater financial, infrastructural, and institutional support from government, the private sector, and civil society. Youth sports refer to organized sporting activities involving young people, and Western Jamaica's economic future refers to long term prosperity, employment, productivity, and sustainable development across parishes such as St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland, Trelawney, and St. Elizabeth. Our case rests on one central principle. When you invest in young people, you invest in economic growth. We will prove this through two arguments. As Prime Minister, I will show how youth sports develop human capital and drive economic productivity. My Deputy Prime Minister will extend this by showing how youth sports reduce social instability and strengthen community resilience. Our government whip will consolidate and rebut the opposition's claims. Madam Chair, I now turn to my first argument. Investment in youth sports builds the human capital necessary for long term economic development. Madam Chair, no economy grows without skilled, disciplined, and productive people. Yet Jamaica continues to face a challenge. Recent starting data shows that while national unemployment is around 3 to 4%, youth unemployment remains significantly higher, with over 10% of those aged between 15 and 24 unemployed, alongside higher underemployment in rural parishes. This shows the issue is not only jobs, but readiness for opportunity. Our solution is structured investment in youth sports across Western Jamaica. This includes upgrading school and community sporting facilities, expanding organized youth leagues across parishes, training and certifying local coaches, and building partnerships between government, schools, and the private sector. This creates a clear pathway from participation to skills development and employment readiness. We already see this model in action. Events such as the ISSA Boys and Girls Championship bring together thousands of students annually. These athletes develop discipline, teamwork, and leadership under structured competition, while also accessing scouts, coaches, and institutions that open careers beyond sport pathways. The impact is direct. Youth engagement is structured sport develop employability skills such as discipline, communication, and resilience. Skills employers consistently demand. This reduces long term unemployment risk and increases productivity in Western Jamaica's future workforce. Madam Chair, this is not about just producing athletes alone. It is about producing economically capable citizens. And that brings me to my second point. Youth sports stimulate economic activity and regional recovery. Youth sports function as an economic driver that creates jobs, stimulate local business, and attracts investment. Madam Chair, Western Jamaica is heavily dependent on tourism and agriculture. However, recent shocks, including Hurricane Melissa, disrupted livelihoods across the western parishes. Starting labor data indicates significant declines in employment and participation, with over 150,000 people impacted across the region. This shows Western Jamaica needs industries that are both resilient and job creating. Our solution is expanding youth sports as a regional economic strategy. This includes rehabilitation and construction of sporting venues, hosting regional tournaments across western parishes, and developing sports tourism partnerships. We already see this nationally. Events like Champs generate major economic activity, hotels fill, transport expands, vendors earn income, and small businesses benefit directly. This demonstrates sports' proven ability to circulate money through local economies. The impact is clear. Every tournament becomes an economic cycle. Construction creates jobs. Creates events create demand. Visitors inject money into businesses, and communities experience sustained economic circulation. This is especially vital for Western Jamaica's recovery. Madam Chair, we have shown today that increased investment youth sports is not symbolic, it is strategic. It develops the human capital needed for productivity. It stimulates real economic activity in Western Jamaica, and it supports recovery in our region facing significant shocks. As Western Jamaica rebuilds, the question is not whether we invest, it is where that investment delivers the greatest return. And the answer is clear: youth sports. Madam Chair, for those reasons, the proposition proudly begs to propose.
Thank you. Thank you, Monroe College. We will now move over to our second speaker, and he will be doing the presentation for his speech as well as the third speaker from Monroe College. Monroe College, please go ahead.
Madam Chairperson, honorable adjudicators, worthy opponents, ladies and gentlemen, before proceeding to my substantive arguments, allow me to address the likely position of the opposition. The opposition may argue that Western Jamaica should prioritize investment in areas such as education, healthcare, or infrastructure instead of youth sports. However, this is a false choice. Youth sports do not compete with these sectors, they reinforce them. Sports improve discipline, teamwork, leadership, physical health, and community engagement. Therefore, investment in youth sports is not a distraction from development, it is a vehicle for development. The opposition may also claim that sports only benefit a small number of talented athletes. Madam Chair, our case has never been about producing professional athletes. It is about creating productive citizens. Whether a young person becomes a doctor, teacher, entrepreneur, police officer, or coach, the skills developed through organized sport remain valuable throughout life. Having addressed these misconceptions, I now advance our team's case. Our Prime Minister, which I would have already established, demonstrated that youth sports develop human capital and stimulate economic growth. I will show that youth sports are equally essential because they reduce social instability and strengthen community resilience. The very foundations upon which sustainable rather economic development depends. My first argument is that youth sports reduce youth disengagement and criminal involvement. My second argument is that youth sports strengthen community resilience and social cohesion. Madam Chair, I now turn to my first argument. Youth sports reduce youth disengagement and criminal involvement. No economy can thrive when large numbers of youth or young people are disconnected from positive opportunities. According to Jamaica's Ministry of National Security, young males between the ages of 15 and 34 account for the overwhelming majority of both murders victims and perpetrators in Jamaica. Additionally, parishes such as St. James and Westmoreland have consistently recorded some of the highest levels of serious violent crime nationally. This tells us that one of Western Jamaica's greatest challenges is not simply crime itself, but youth vulnerability. Our solution is increased investment in organized youth sports programs across Western Jamaica. How would this be implemented, you may ask? Through expanded after school sporting programs, community leagues, parish competitions, upgraded recreational facilities, and trained coaches serving as mentors and role models. Why does this work? Sport provides structure during the very hours when many people are most vulnerable to negative influences. It teaches discipline, like I've said before, teamwork, accountability, perseverance, and respect for rules. More importantly, it connects young people to positive peer groups and adult mentors. We have already seen this approach in action through Jamaica's Gloves Over Guns programming, which uses boxing and mentorship to engage at risk youth and provide alternatives to violence and criminal activity. The impact is clear. Every young person participating in organized sport is one less young person left vulnerable to gang recruitment. Every young person connected to a coach is one more young person connected to guidance and opportunity. And every reduction in youth crime creates safer communities, lower social costs, and a stronger environment for investment and development. Madam Chair, safer communities are not merely social benefits, they are economic necessities. And that brings me to my second point. Youth sports strengthen community resilience and social cohesion. Strong economies require strong communities. Western Jamaica has faced significant challenges in recent years, including economic disruptions, natural disasters, and social inequalities. Communities facing such challenges need more than physical infrastructure. They need social resilience. Our solution is strategic investment in community based youth sports initiatives. How would this be implemented? Through parish tournaments, community sporting partnerships, youth leadership programs, and expanded sporting opportunities that bring together schools, families, businesses, and community organizations. This reason, the reason this matters is simple. Sport unites people. A football team cannot succeed without cooperation. A relay team cannot succeed without trust. A tournament cannot succeed without community participation. We see this throughout Jamaica. Like previously mentioned, the ISSA Boys and Girls Championships and regional football competitions attract thousands of athletes, parents, coaches, volunteers, sponsors, and spectators. These events create relationships that extend beyond sport and strengthen communities. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, recognizes sport as a powerful tool for social inclusion, peace, peace building, and community development because of its ability to bring people together and common goals. The impact is profound. Communities with stronger social cohesion are better able to support young people, respond to challenges, and recover from crises. They experience greater stability, they foster greater civic partnerships, and they create the social environment necessary for long term economic growth. Madam Chair, our Prime Minister has also already demonstrated that youth sports build human capital and stimulate economic activity. Today, I have shown you that youth sports have also reduced youth disengagement, combat social instability, strengthen community resilience, and create safer, more cohesive communities. Because Western Jamaica's economic future depends not only on infrastructure and investment, but also on people and communities. For those reasons, I proudly continue to support the government's case. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Monroe College. We will now move over to your third speaker, and there will not be a rebuttal for this match due to Cornwall College forfeit, but I'm sure the judges will give their comments at the end. Go ahead, third speaker.
All protocols observed. Imagine a young boy growing up in rural Jamaica. He possesses talent, discipline, and ambition. Every waking moment, he trains, not because it is a hobby, but because sports represents a pathway to opportunity. Yet, too often, the reality for many people is that if you want these opportunities, you must leave your community. Madam Speaker, the government rejects that reality. Because the purpose of investment in youth sports is not simply to create athletes, it is to create opportunity, develop human capital, and build stronger communities that contribute to economic growth. At the beginning of this debate, The government established that youth sports are economic infrastructure. They develop discipline, teamwork, leadership, resilience, and healthier citizens. These are not merely sporting qualities, they are qualities of a productive workforce. And Madam Speaker, the opposition cannot defeat this analysis. Instead, they would begin to question the implementation, where the money comes from, how programs should operate, and whether resources should be allocated elsewhere. But notice the concession that would have been made. This would have proven that the investment in youth sports does not lack value, and it would be our method of arguing if it should be implemented. The question before this House is not whether the government's approach is the only investment Western Jamaica needs. The question is whether youth sports form an essential part of the region's economic future. Madam Speaker, the opposition would not want this House to believe that only one sector can drive economic development, but successful economies do not function that way. They are like a clock. The hands may move differently, but the gears behind them must work together for the system to function. Tourism, education, infrastructure, healthcare, and youth sports are not competing priorities. They are interconnected investment that strengthen one another. Not because every athlete does not turn a professional means sports investment lacks economic value. The economic return is not only in producing stars, it is creating coaches, trainers, officials, event managers, facility workers, healthier citizens, and young people with skills that translate into every sector of society. Additionally, as these sporting programs grow and the quality of competition improves, they create indirect economic benefits by attracting spectators, visiting teams, and sporting events to the region. This increases demand for hotels, restaurants, transportation services, and local businesses, allowing investment in youth sports to stimulate wider economic activity across Western Jamaica. Finally, Madam Speaker, let us address funding. The opposition may frame that this is a choice between investing in youth sports and investing in other areas. But responsible government do not build nations by abandoning one essential area for another. Investment can come through national sporting allocations, private partnerships, sponsorships, and strategic prioritization. The existence of competing needs does not eliminate the importance of investing in our young people. The opportunity should not be something our young people must travel elsewhere to find. It must be something we build right here in Western Jamaica. And for these reasons, we proudly affirm the motion. The government rests.
Okay, and rest they will. Congratulations, Monroe College. Strong argument and just a reminder of our motion. Be it resolved that increases economic future. And Monroe College is proposing the motion, and Cornell College would have been opposing. Judges, I will turn over to you. I know that we have improved our scoring with the implementation of the Taliban debate dashboard. So let us return in a few minutes and let's have your feedback on the match. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I am still going to ask for a round of applause. Please, congratulate Monroe College for showing up this morning. Thank you. Thank you, Tafari. We see you. I am going to ask our Chief Judge Alden Reed to present. Now, Coach Foster, Dion Chance, that's the name that I'm seeing here. Dion Janice. Coach Foster, that's you, right? But your phone says.
Yes, that's me.
Janice.
I'm unsure
All
how
right.
to change the name, the last name on there.
Right. You need to rename your you need to rename. All right. Now we have a very difficult task, Coach Foster. Difficult meaning that you would have understand the arguments and how the arguments we would have anticipated to flow. No fault of yours. We were told Cornell College would not move forward only a few minutes before the match. What we are concerned about is the readiness of your team. And so the judges will present the scores, but we cannot say finally until the second match to see how well they do. Of course, we will have a winner for the second match. Both schools are ready, but we have to look at the scores and if your team will be able to move forward to the finals, and meaning be able that you're in one room, that you have all your speakers and that you are represented well. It would be very unfair for the winning or the winning school for today's match to move forward and you have one speaker speaking twice, things like that. So you have to understand, we have to really look at how we present. We have a responsibility to our sponsors as well.
Absolutely, I completely understand that.
So, Mr. Reed, you can go ahead and yeah.
Let me start again. I was on mute. Apologies for that. So, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, obviously, for having me this morning as Chief Judge, and I'm happy to sort of present what we would have spoken about in our deliberation with the other esteemed judges. First of all, let me congratulate Monroe for a very good job. I think obviously there are limitations around presenting an argument when there is no opponent. And I believe, just to be fair to Monroe, that is going to always be a psychological challenge. How do you really bring out that energy when there's no one across the room? And so we are scoring based on how you perform, but ostensibly we understand that the truth is, because of, as was stated earlier, because of the no-show of Cornwall, you would have had to sort of repurpose and rework how you present the arguments that you're presenting. Notwithstanding that, I mean, there was a clear question that was being asked, and of course, the burden of proof would have been on you, Monroe, as the government side, to make a stronger case. And in this case, to make a strong case, since you were a solo act for this performance. Now, the essential question was whether or not this idea of sports and the intervention of sports in this specific case would have been something that would have been a great thing for the Western Jamaica. And so obviously one of the things as speakers that you would need to do would have been to create not only a definition of what this motion was trying to say in terms of interpreting what that investment means, sorry, but also sort of outline what those benefits would be. So of course, there was a need for you to sort of present in our minds a definition of what we're talking about here. I believe from the perspective of the first/second speaker being the same person, there was perhaps you could do a little bit more in terms of defining what it is that we were trying to debate today. And of course, that is essentially a big part of what you're scored on. And there was some definition. I mean, there was a feeling that, I mean, there one could have left without fully understanding, what are we talking about in terms of economic future, for example. Are we really looking at employment? You spoke about employment. But does it go beyond that? What about, how does it impact media, merchandise, commerce in general? You did speak on that as well. I felt that you really did a good job in terms of parsing out some of the key areas that would have been, a benefit to Western Jamaica. A lot of time, I believe, in the first and second speeches were spent on the economic side. You talked about the whole spin-off from Melissa and how something like this would have redounded to the benefit of Western Jamaica. However, I think there were areas that we would consider other burdens of proof that were just left out. And so we would have wanted to see a little bit more, you know, a little more depth beyond the sort of socio-economic impact that you spoke a lot on. There are other areas that I believe could have been touched on. And without making these comments too long, I think generally we saw I said a decent job in terms of really presenting the case. I think from the first speaker's perspective, we felt that it could be a little bit more energetic. We saw that sort of it ramped up for your third speaker. We felt that there was a little bit more, style for your third speaker this morning. But all in all, I mean, these particular comments are not sort of comparing, one or the other. I think in general you did a fair job. A little bit more depth would have been good, but I think there was nothing to be not happy about beyond the fact that you could have done a little bit more. I think you did present well. I think the speeches were generally delivered in a good way. And so I would definitely say good job. Making the time and putting in the effort to prepare for today's debate is something that we also have to applaud, and we cannot really take it for granted. And so we also want to, applaud you in terms of promoting the academic thought, the thought leadership, the process of putting this together and speaking, oratory skills. It's something that we always want to encourage for our young people coming up. And so, yeah, I think the scores. So we're not speaking to a winner, we're speaking to scores this morning. And if I might break down the scores from the first speaker that tallied 226 points, the second speaker tallied 223, between three judges, that is, and the third speaker sorry, let me pause. I think I was speaking. The first judge, my apologies, tallied 226. The second judge tallied 223. And the third judge tallied 246. My apologies for that. And so the total tally total score for Monroe today is 695 points. Of course, the caveat here is that we did not have scores for your rebuttal. And so that would have factored into the score that you're having today. So again, 695 is your score. And again, good job. Thanks everyone involved. Thanks to organizers, fellow judges, and of course, thanks Monroe for showing up, showing out, and performing in a very credible way this morning. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Can we have a quick comments from Gavi Watt and Tafari Hilton? Just very quickly, we have to prepare for the next match at 12. But if you could just give us a few words, please. Gavi, let's start with you if you're still here. Gavi?
I am. Good going, Monroe. I think if you guys move on to the next round, first speaker, I think you need to be a lot more forceful as a prime minister or leader of the opposition in terms of making the case and basically raising all of the line of arguments that your team is possibly going to look at. How you categorize it or summarize it really and truly is up to you. While I can understand, you want to be somewhat reserved, I think you need to be more passionate and be more forceful in laying out the arguments for your team going forward. This is my second match judging, and while you are your diction is good and your tone is consistent. I'm not sure if you're as forceful as a first speaker should be in terms of laying a solid foundation for your team. Third speaker, the passion is there again. You don't have a second speaker today, but you might want to look into moving possibly your third speaker to your second speaker if your second speaker is not as strong and as passionate. And then also look at, you have to remember that in a debate you can't, even though you're the proposition, you have to look at all possible arguments and employ a strategy that caters to all of that. So, and I feel that was missing in this match. If you move on to the next round, let that not be the case. But overall, it wasn't bad. And continue debating.
Safari, go ahead.
Yeah, man, sure, thank you. All right, so for me, this was a very interesting debate. I do echo the sentiments. I will say kudos to you, Manuel, for making the time and doing the work, the preparation. So we do understand that school is out, so it would have been a bit, perhaps a bit difficult to kind of say, all right, I have this, so let me allocate the time. So good job on that. I just wish that the arguments could have gone a bit more in depth, But the touch on Melissa, cool, but there's so much more that you guys could have built upon, especially considering that this is an investment debate. I wish there was some financial projections, nothing too crazy, but just to say, like, if we're going to invest into this is the money. Like, we could stand to earn this much. However, you guys did talk about the development of our athletes as well as positioning this as a industry for it to be among the industries that the West has, which is good. But to position it as a investment, some financials would have been very helpful. But as is, congrats, well done, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the final.
Thank you very much, Tafari. Hilton.